Good afternoon, Austin.
Okay. All right. Well, then we'll just go around the room. We'll talk a little bit about experience and what we bring to the table. So why don't we start with maybe Attorney Demiraj and work our way down?
Good afternoon, Rudy Demirai, AFSCME Council 4.
Michael Batosa, Bristol Labor Council, AFL-CIO.
Dan Livingston with law firm Livingston Adler Pohl, Mickle, John and Kelly, and we're a union side labor law firm.
James Demetriadis. I'm a lawyer at Ferguson, Doyle, and Chester. We represent unions across the state, including AFT Connecticut, UPFFA, and other state. So looking forward to being part of the working group and developing a product with you all over the course of the next couple months. Thanks so much.
I'm Bud Drapo. I represent injured workers, and I'm here for the CTLA.
Representative Manny Sanchez, co-chair of the Labor and Public Employees Committee. It's a pleasure to serve with all of you in this group alongside some of my colleagues.
Eric George, president of the Insurance Association of Connecticut. We represent workers' compensation insurance carriers.
Pete Myers. I'm the senior policy director at the Connecticut Business and Industry Association, where we represent the state's business community.
And Mike Muzinski with the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities. We represent Connecticut's towns and cities, currently representing 168 of the 169.
Folks online, can you hear us okay?
Yep. Yeah, yes. I can hear you, Mr. Chair. I'll just chime in. John Kissel, State Senator, 7th District, representing all or part of 8 towns in North Central Connecticut here because of my position as ranking senator on the Judiciary Committee.
I'll jump in. Sorry. So I didn't mean to cut you off. Gary Winfield, Senator, 10th District, co-chair of the Judiciary Committee. I would have been with you all. I'm not very mobile right now. I had a fall. Get better.
No.
Hi, my name's Jason Dodge, and I generally represent as an attorney respondents and employers in workers' compensation cases here in Connecticut.
I am Jeremy Brown of Costello Coombs and Brown. I am a claimant's workers' compensation attorney.
I am Marie Gallo Hall. I am the legislative advisor and agency legal director for the Workers' Compensation Commission. I generally like to say at the outset when I'm involved in these things that the chairman generally does not take any positions with respect to pending legislation, and that I am here in an advisory role only.
Representative Michael Quinn from the 82nd District in Meriden.
I've been a practicing claimants workers' compensation attorney for 27 years, and I'm here representing Representative Fishbein, the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee.
Is that permanent?
I'll check with him, John.
Okay.
I'm Diane Ritucci, President and CEO of the Workers' Compensation Trust. We represent, we insure 580 healthcare and human service employers in the state of Connecticut.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. George McNa. I serve as a bureau chief within the Department of Aging and Disability Services, and I'm appointed by Commissioner Porter to sit on this work group. I oversee the Workers' Rehabilitation Services program within the department.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Katie D'Agostino, President and CEO of the Central Connecticut Chambers of Commerce. We represent 1,700 business members across Bristol, Burlington, Farmington, Plainville, Plymouth, Wilkett, and Thomaston.
Anyone else? I think that's everybody online. Great.
No, you
No,
forgot
we got
me.
one. Oh, Senator Kushner. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Senator Kushner. I'm Senate Chair of the Labor Committee, and I'm going to go turn off my camera in a minute because I'm driving. I'm not driving right now, but I will be in a minute.
Any other members online want to weigh in? I think we're all set. Okay. With that, we will go to item 3 on our agenda, which is to provide an overview of the Public Act that we passed this past spring, Public Act 2512, and to clarify the call of the working group and to give a preview of the work that will be ahead of us in the months to come. So in May of this past year, after several weeks of conversation, we passed as a portion of Public Act 2512 4 different sections pertaining to workers' compensation. The thrust of the work that we did surrounded section 1 of the bill, which pertains to eligibility of certain types of benefits. As many of us know, as we have a lot of practitioners on this working group, there was a decision that came down from the Supreme Court, Gardner versus Demas, concerning the extent to which an administrative law judge has discretion over awarding benefits subject to this provision of the general statutes when a person has reached maximum medical improvement. So we made some revisions to that portion of the statute to effectively require the administrative law judge to award the next class of benefits when when an injured worker reaches their point of MMI. Next section of the bill, section 2, pertains to an expansion of compensation benefits for certain deceased workers who don't have designated survivorship benefits. This obviously came out of a tragic case in Meriden concerning a DOT worker who did not have a defined class of eligible beneficiaries for his worker compensation benefits. So we have expanded that class to include parents of the deceased workers in the event that they do not have a specific designated beneficiary. The third and very important section of this Public Act pertains to supplemental benefits. So as we were weighing what the legislation looked like, we definitely took into account the class of workers who are seriously injured, who cannot return to their usual line of work, and have engaged in vocational rehabilitation. And so what we allowed under Section 3 of this Public Act was to give the administrative law discretion to award this supplemental class of benefits up to a certain threshold of weeks in order to really safeguard the workers who are actively trying to return to the workforce but can't do it in the line of work that they typically can. And lastly, and most importantly for our purposes, we established this working group. And in reviewing the Public Act, there are really, in my mind, 3 major things that we are going to be reviewing over the next several weeks and months. One, whether the Workers' Compensation Act provides adequate funds for rehabilitative services for injured employees, how much money we're putting in, whether that's achieving the goals that we want as far as rehabilitation services go. Number two, investigating ways to encourage injured employees to use these services. So are we doing enough to connect injured workers with the resources that they have? What more can we be doing to encourage injured workers to utilize these services at their disposal? And three, an investigation of any additional benefits that might be available to workers who are already receiving PPD benefits. So I don't know if anybody else has anything else to add. That's my understanding of the call, but if folks care to comment, now's your chance.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Senator Kissel.
Yeah, my question, I guess, is, and it's maybe in the statute, but what's our time frame? Because I know we're starting February 4th, we end May 6th, and I don't know if we're supposed to have a work product that's going to enter into the legislative system to be acted upon this year.
I know we have thank you for that question, Senator Kissel. I know we have a preliminary report due in February of this year, and we have a final report due before we reconvene as a new legislature in 2027. So there will be effective.
Okay. So from that, I gather this is looking towards 2027 activity.
Correct. So the final report will be published before we reconvene in 2027, and any further action that we take as a legislature on the recommendations of this working group will, we would have an eye to implement those in 2027 and onward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further questions from members? Okay, hearing none, we will move to item 4 on the agenda, which is a review and discussion of initial areas of focus. So I think this would be a good opportunity. We have a ton of experts on this panel. We have as you heard at the start, a vast diversity of practitioners who practice workers' comp law, but who are also heavily involved in the business community. So, you know, we have the advantage of a large working group with a vast diversity of perspectives. So this would be a great opportunity to for other members of the committee to shed some light on the areas that they'd like to focus on. Yes. Mr. Drapeau.
Yeah, hi, Bud Drapeau. Yeah, again, I just wanted to make sure we understand the group of individuals that we're talking about. And these are individuals who've been injured at work, and the severity of the injury has caused permanent disabling effects to the point where they cannot return to their chosen profession, and their employer cannot accommodate these new permanent restrictions. Now, we do have obviously rehabilitation services in place, and they pay for the retraining, but they don't pay the individual's bills while they are retraining. And the problem that we currently have is that if their workers' compensation benefits are due to expire in the middle of their retraining, people aren't going to begin the retraining. They can't afford to. And keep in mind, while they've been out on workers' comp, they've been receiving roughly 3/4 of their take-home pay. So it's not like, and this has been going on for at least a year, so it's not like they've been able to build up some kind of safety net in their bank account. In fact, whatever safety net they've had has probably been depleted. So these are the circumstances that we're dealing with, I think, in this committee.
And Mr. Chair, if I may add to that, one of the part and parcel with what was just described is for folks who have low disability ratings, but those low disability ratings create a major impairment on their ability to do their original job, and they have to go and do retraining for a completely different job. So it can be in situations where somebody has a low disability rating, but a permanent restriction, i.e. a 10-pound lifting restriction for the pendency of their career or their life, but only a 5 or a 2 or 3% per actual physical disability on the disability rating. And what you end up having is you have highly trained employees. I'm thinking of some of my nurses and my healthcare workers or my firefighters that can no longer do those jobs because those jobs are increasingly physically demanding. And where can they go to get an equivalent job that provides equivalent salary and benefits for their family with the skill set that they have? In most cases, they have to either be disability retired if it's available to them. And if it's not available to them, they have to start from scratch with a new career. And as described just before, we find a gap of the ability of those folks to be able to get back on their feet. And oftentimes the rehabilitation services that are available don't necessarily fit their needs while they're trying to, their immediate concern is trying to find a new job as quickly as possible because they need to be able to have new income come in after being out for a period of time already on disability. So just to add, there's also the problem of not only is the disability rating could potentially be low when not match the restrictions that are given. So that's the other half of the problem.
Mr. Chair, if I may, from the business community's point of view, looking at vocational rehab, I think something we're very interested in is the current numbers using the state's vocational rehab program, what it's benefiting in terms of results, in terms of retraining, and looking at ways that we could improve that program to make it more attractive to get workers back retrained into the workforce. But certainly interested to see what information is available about that.
Further comments from members of the working group?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Livingston.
I do think this question of where we're going to get reliable data on how we can address particularly the class of workers that my colleagues just talked about is going to be very important as we've tried to find common ground in the past on legislative issues. One of the biggest struggles around this question, one of the biggest struggles has been where do we get the data? Are we talking about 10,000 workers or 100 workers? And obviously then that has implications for how we solve the problem. So I think one of the first agenda items for us is to figure out how we can get reliable data, because finding common ground is going to be a lot easier if we have data that we all trust.
So I guess that begs the follow-up question of, what are the sources of data we can look at and who has access to them on the working group? I guess, do we have anything on the employer side that might be helpful?
Well, sorry.
We have someone online. Yep, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So I can tell you that this is not really the kind of data that the Workers' Compensation Commission collects, and I'm not quite sure how we would collect it because it's so different for the thousands and thousands of people that we serve. So I just want to toss that out there. We don't collect that kind of data. And I don't know if we could.
Mr. Chair, just a question for the commission. One of the questions that I guess that begats is there any follow-up to folks when their claim is closed after a period of time where you ask, or, have you returned back to work? Are you working at the same employer? Are you working in the same capacity? Is there any survey or anything that goes out after a claim is closed I know when on the full and final STIP form, normally the one of the things they have to fill out is, are they still employed? Where are they employed? The employment information's on the STIP, but is there anything beyond the full and final STIP that captures where they're at job wise?
No. I mean, we get tens of thousands of new claims every year. So I don't know if that's, and we have less than 100 employees. So I don't know if that's a realistic thing for us to do. What I can tell you is that when people settle their cases, one of the questions that is asked at the canvas is, are they aware of their rights to pursue retraining under Division of Workers Rehab? Have they applied? Have they spoken with their attorney about it? We keep applications in the district offices so that the judges can hand them an application or direct them, before you leave today, pick up an application if you're interested in it. But no, we do not follow up after a case is closed.
I think Representative Quinn and Senator Kissel have their hands raised online.
You're on mute, John. There you go.
Am I announced? I was going to let you go first, Mike, but Mr. Chair, I just had the opportunity to speak with Commissioner Kuros and some of his staff yesterday afternoon, as it turns out, regarding issues affecting the Department of Corrections. And as I'm sure everybody's aware, especially Attorney Livingston and folks that represent folks in the public sector, we have an awful lot of workers' comp injuries in the Department of Corrections. And there's difficulties in getting them back into their regular employment given the physical demands. And so I was heartened to learn that the commissioner's guidance, they are exploring further areas where with reduced ability physically, they can still come back to the department and perform other functions, maybe more paperwork or processing or monitoring calls, that kind of stuff. And so I'm wondering, are our efforts limited to the private sector, or would this also explore into the public sector where we might be able to garner some of the evidence or information that we would need? And maybe we can extrapolate from that.
I mean, my expectation would be that we'd be looking at both public and private sector to include the universe of everybody who would be potentially filing these claims with the commission itself. So I think it'd be worthy to look at both.
So I would just not to be rude and interrupt, but I just think as we look to seem to hit a brick wall a little bit with the Workers' Compensation Commission, and I can't blame them if they just don't have the workforce to handle this, but we may be able to reach out to different agencies or departments to gather representative samples that we could extrapolate from for some of our larger issues, such as the Department of Corrections, Department of Public Safety, state police workers, folks over at University of Connecticut. I just think we might be able to get a friendly ear and maybe some of the data quicker than trying to figure out some other way. I just throw that out there for people's consideration going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I mean, in my mind, it sounds like a reasonable request. I don't know how that resonates with other folks in the working group. Especially if we don't have a central access point for data. So piecemeal may be the way to go. Any other thoughts from working group members?
Well, I mean, I'm
Attorney
wondering
Livingston?
whether there is an opportunity to expand on that a little bit. I agree that it doesn't sound like we have a comprehensive database that we can access, but maybe it would make sense to look at a couple of state agencies, but also think about, is there a group or sector of the building trades where they might maintain some of the information we need? The employers might maintain some of that information. Maybe Pratt and Whitney maintains information like that, or certainly the employers know how many workers are injured and then are unable to return to their employment, right? They would have those records, and maybe we can agree on a representative sample that would give us a sense of the broader universe. But I would want to include both private and public sector if we're going to do that.
Representative Quinn online. I know you've been waiting to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the commission. Marie, what data do you guys keep on vocational rehab, and how many people apply for it? What percentage actually get put into a program, and then of the ones that go into a program, what percentage has it worked out for them?
So, Mike, as you know, DWI used to be part of the Workers' Compensation Commission, and it has not been. I don't know, Jason, how long has it been? It's been at least 10 years, right? 12 years since So I would think that that data would be more readily available from the Department of Disability and Aging, because that's where the applications go. That's the department that works with the injured workers. So I would think they would have a better idea of how many applications they get and how many of those applications actually qualify for assistance.
Okay. Yeah, that
If
was my thought as to where we should be going with that as well. I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, I haven't had a ton of clients that have had a successful result out of voc rehab, but that may not have anything to do with the program and just the circumstances that they've found themselves in. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
If I may, I would say we could certainly look at what kind of questions that the committee might have. We do collect information in terms of the number of individuals that approach us for services, how many applicants we receive, how many plans are created, and then what then is provided for those individuals. So,
yes, just to address Representative Quinn's comment, where he has had not a lot of successful results. I think part of that problem is because of when voc rehab left the Workers' Comp Commission. I think that became somewhat of a problem. The benefits that injured workers used to receive when they were part of the voc rehab program substantially changed. And I think that may have something to do with it. And I think what we should be looking at also as we, continue is to look as to how to bring some of these benefits back to the injured worker so they can be successful while they're transitioning into voc rehab.
Yep, go ahead, Mr. George.
I'm not assuming anybody knows this answer. We might though, given the years that you guys have been dealing with this, but when was vocational rehabilitation removed under the purview of the Workers' Compensation Commission, and do we know why? Was it a budgetary reason?
It was removed several years ago.
But no indication as to why. It just happened to shake out that way.
From what I recall, it was due to budget issues, changing the way the program worked.
Okay. Any other, before we move on, just to close the loop on the data collection side of things. So we got some positive feedback from Aging and Disability Services. We can talk maybe offline on how we might go about procuring that data, but any other thoughts on, I know private sector, large scale employers was mentioned as a possible contributor to a representative sample size. Is it feasible for us to collect that? Can we get that data?
I would say for the large employers, confidentiality is obviously certainly something that we have to just be aware of. So it's certainly something I can approach our employers about, but something to be aware of. There is also the NCCI, which does ratings on certain situations, but typically they only rate. I don't want to speak for them, but typically it's been actual legislation that ends up getting rated. But Eric might know more on that. But
I was just to some of the data collection folks on our end to see what's available and what maybe has been aggregated, so it's not proprietary like that. But we'll do some work on our end to see what type of data might be available.
Anything from the municipal side in terms of data?
Yeah, very similar to the business industry. We're very cognizant of making sure that there's a heightened level of keeping this confidential information private. But we can certainly do some surveys to our members. The collection rate is probably not going to be significant based on what we've seen in the past. As an organization, we are fortunate. We do have underneath our umbrella KERMA, which is the insurer for most municipalities in the state, not all, and we can certainly approach them to see about collecting some of this information as well.
I think the Kerman data would be especially helpful if they're willing to contribute something on that front. Any other comments on data collection? Or we have a pretty good plan for moving forward?
I raised my hand. I'm not sure whether I can just speak.
Yep, go ahead. Yeah, sorry, I can't
going
see
for it.
online. So folks who are online, feel free to just jump on in.
Okay, good, thanks. I would just caution using employer data. I'm really concerned about that because oftentimes people are leaving their employer for a variety of reasons. Injury may be one of them. And oftentimes by the time rehabilitation has occurred that they're ready to go back to the job isn't available because FMLA has expired, et cetera, et cetera. That doesn't mean that they aren't able to go back and do their regular typical kind of work in another employer. So I don't think that's going to be a very good source of data. I think certainly using what's come through the disability agency itself that's handling this would be more appropriate. But I think also I just wanted to comment that in all of the years that I've been doing this kind of work, very few people have chosen to go the VOC rehab route. The state of Connecticut, frankly, has never been considered a viable option from our standpoint in terms of providing successful workers rehab. I'm sorry to say, there was a time, a long time ago, when they were making surveyors out of people and doing things with medical coding and things like that. Those were kind of successful programs. But for the most part, what we have found is that injured workers are either motivated to change careers, and therefore, in today's world, it's kind of pretty easy for them to do so with online training and certificate programs and things that can kind of move them in other directions. Nurses certainly have a host of jobs that they can go to in the insurance industry that are desk-oriented, things like that. So things have changed clearly in terms of when VOC rehab was more viable in the Workers' Comp Commission. So I think you just want to be very cautious that for those that are truly motivated, I think the insurance carriers would agree, and certainly you can poll them. How are you handling those cases? And I can tell you from our standpoint, we are funding VOC rehab on our own, out of our pocket, successfully for those who are motivated and want to return or change careers. And we are funding them while they're working at that to do so. And we are making sure that they become whole at the end. I don't know that every carrier is doing that, but I will say that that's worth having a conversation about and just asking, how is that handled? And then I'm sure that the attorneys would agree that in some situations, that's not what people are looking for. They're looking for a settlement. They're looking to move on their own. And in that case, we'd rather take the money and put it toward the settlement and have them move on their own. So not every situation is fixable by providing a source of vocational rehab, because not everybody wants vocational rehab. And those that clearly do, they can figure it out. They mostly can figure it out for themselves. For those that can't, then I think we do need to have some sort of safeguard, that could be with the carrier in the private, the private sector there, or fund it through a source that's going to be viable and work. The worst thing you want to do is send a claimant, an injured worker, up to a state agency, fill out a form, sit and wait for 3 months. Nobody's talking to them. They still don't know how things are going to move forward. I mean, it's got to be a program that's really going to get their attention and keep them in the loop, or else it's not going to serve any useful purpose.
Further comments from folks online? Hearing none. Okay, so I think the point on participations, it's well taken, and that's one of the big reasons why we're convening this working group in the first place, is to see if there are other ways we can incentivize participation in VOC rehab. So I'm an attorney. I don't practice workers' compensation, so just because it was brought up in the previous line of discussion, are there any preliminary thoughts on VOC rehab that are worth addressing at this point in the working group? Okay, so step one, get some data. Step two, in advance of our next meeting, is there anything further we'd like to address before that happens? No? Folks online? All right, hearing none. All right, so next steps, we will talk to our respective folks, see if we can get some data across multiple sectors. The Department of Disability and Aging, we can reach out to you specifically, but we'll use that as sort of the foundation, and then work from hopefully both public and private sector to get an accurate sample size. So in the end, I'd like to call another meeting before we go back into session and as things pick up. So I don't have a specific date in mind yet, but I'd like to do it before the first Wednesday, second Wednesday, and first Wednesday in February. So
Yeah, February 4th, Mr. Chair.
February 4th. There we go. Okay. So we got about a month. We'll call another meeting in the interim, and in the meantime, we'll focus on getting data. Yep.
Mr. Chair, can you just clarify with respect to the data, exactly what it is? So we're all on the same page and we're not looking for different
Sure.
data.
So we would like some data collection from the Department of Aging and Disability Services as a baseline. I know that was offered, and it seems like it might be the most readily accessible. If NCII is available, that'd be great. But if not, maybe some representative data from large private employers within the parameters of confidentiality, I think would be helpful. If CCM could reach out to KERMA to see if we can get some data on claims, I think that would be a good place to start on the municipal side of things. From the worker side of things, do you have any readily available pools of data that might be good places to draw from?
I mean, I'm just thinking offhand. I think most of our cases would be anecdotal. So I think it would be better if we had data. I mean, unfortunately, data either from the commission, the state, or employers, because I think the two questions that we have to get data for are what percentage of employees use and utilize vocational rehab and, the data associated with that. And then secondarily, what percentage of employees that file claims ultimately do not return to their job. And I know one of our colleagues' point is well taken. It's not going to be a representative bedrock of every single person's situation, but trying to find a handle on how many people don't go back. And there may be a lot of reasons why they don't go back, but just to have an idea, is it 10% of all people who are injured at work don't end up going back to their original position? Is it 5%? Is it 1%? At least we have a ballpark of a universe that we're operating in, because I think from both sides of the table, whether you're representing employers or you're representing employees that were injured, we want people to be able to go back to work. We want people to be back at being productive, and we want them to have the tools to do that and be successful in doing that. So trying to figure out, what is the population that we're talking about? I think all the data I would have would just be anecdotal, so I don't think it'd be particularly useful unless we're trying to solve a very particular problem.
Mr. George?
Just to be clear, Attorney Demetriadis, thank you for saying that, and I wanted to follow up on what Rudy said. Just so I'm clear, make sure that we're all on the same page. So I think that you said it well, but I want to make sure I understood it correctly. So what we're looking for is the percentage of employees that are utilizing vocational rehabilitation, point one. And point two is the percentage of employees that do not return to their jobs. Okay. And so regardless of where you're looking, whether it is at the Department of Disability and Aging or within KERMA or whatever the source of information, if it is possible to sort of view it in that lens, I think that might be the most useful. Is that right?
I agree with that. And I think we have to be cautious to make sure when we say the percentage of employees that don't return to their jobs, we have to be specific. If they're not returning to they may be returning to their job in a different classification, but not maybe, and there may be other employees that don't return back to the same employer. So we want to make sure that we have that data.
That's a good point.
So we have two folks waiting online. We'll go Rep Quinn and then Ms. Gallowhall.
Yeah, for the insurance side, is it possible for you guys to run statistics on how many claimants avail themselves of post-specific 308A benefits? Because those would be the ones that probably are more going to be in line for voc rehab services because they haven't returned to their previous jobs. So maybe to the extent that you guys could come up with some figures on that, that might be helpful as well.
Representative Quinn, Eric George here. Can you repeat? I just want to make sure I got that correctly. The number of claimants that avail themselves of post-specific.
Post-specific 308A benefits.
I just want to make sure I got everything correctly.
Yeah, they're not back to their regular job and they're doing job searches to collect the additional benefits that they are entitled to.
Thank you.
Can I just have one, is this on that thread or can I have Ms. Gallowhall speak?
Yeah, so two things, because I had another thought before Representative Quinn asked that question. Somebody mentioned, I think it was you, Eric, that mentioned percentage of employees, injured employees using DWR. That's a different analysis than how many people are applying and actually get accepted into the program. Like I said, we have tens of thousands of new claims every year. So I could supply information on how many new claims we get in the course of a year. And we do that every year. In fact, we're going to be giving a report to the governor soon. We do that at the beginning of every year. So that's easy enough. And then maybe you can extrapolate from that of how many people actually applied. But people aren't applying as soon as they get hurt. They're applying a year or 2 years down the road once they've reached maximum medical improvement and have permanent work restrictions. So I think the question about the percentage of employees utilizing DWR, that's a little harder number to come to. As to if we could figure out the number of people getting post-specific benefits, possibly what I can do is I can ask our IT people if they can track orders, 308A orders. I don't know if they can or not, but I can certainly ask them if that's something that they could come up with on the computer. And I can let you know.
Mr. Livingston, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, a couple things. I don't think that we want to only assume that people ought to get access to these services post-specific. In fact, we would want them to have access certainly while they're on specific, maybe not before then because they haven't reached maximum medical improvement yet, but once they start specific, certainly, and even before then in some cases. The second thing is, I would think in terms of data that, and I do think we heard from the Department of Aging and Disability Services that they do have some data on the people what the benefits are that people are getting through, what the training is that people are getting through that program now. And if we get that information from them, we may want to compare what's provided under those programs to what's provided, let's say, in New York State, where I know they have a very robust system of job training available, of support for job training, et cetera. I certainly agree we don't want to make things overly bureaucratic. I don't think that's what it's about, but it is about providing support for workers. And I think the state government can be a very important part of that. But let's find out what we're doing, and then let's compare it to what some of our neighbors are doing and see, what maybe we need to provide legislative changes to allow.
Can I respond to that?
You may.
So, I believe last year when we had, I think it was last year, we had a working group where we talked about some of these same issues, and Karen Sargent came and spoke with us. And I believe the standard for applying for Division of Workers Rehabilitation Program is not that you're at maximum medical improvement, but that you have permanent work restrictions. So I think the prior gentleman who just spoke is correct. You don't necessarily have to be at MMI, maximum medical improvement, if the doctor says that you have permanent work restrictions.
That would be correct. Sorry.
So the sooner someone applies, obviously, the better for them, because then they get the ball rolling in terms of retraining so that they can get back to the workforce.
Okay.
Do we have a pretty firm understanding of the data we need in order to proceed? Yeah, we're all on the same page. Okay. Anything else we'd like to address in advance of our next meeting? All right, hearing none, we will adjourn this meeting, and I will speak with our clerk on noticing a follow-up meeting, but we'll do it. We'll keep an eye on doing it before session starts. Thanks everybody for showing up, and thanks for a great first meeting. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.